Hi, I'm Susan Voorhees, and I'm the third oldest sibling of the Voorhees clan. As a kid, I remember just doing kid things. We were really lucky to have parents who nurtured our individual personalities, our gifts, and our spirits by often letting us lead in the pursuit of our interests, unless they were a little bit too dangerous. They exposed us to art by our weekly excursion to museums, but also we would go to historic sites, we went to the zoo, we went skiing, but we always did these things as a family. They really set an example for learning art and practicing art. Um, as I remember, we'd gather around the dining room table and daddy would be painting and mom would be drawing, and the rest of us would find our space there and be engaged in whatever projects we were doing at that point. My childhood was ordinary but different from my brothers and my sister. I had polio as a baby and lots of surgeries from the time I was like 7 to 8 to 12. I think it was like that. And as a result, I was in a cast a lot and I used crutches and that sort of thing. I, but despite this, I wasn't left out of anything except school. I didn't go to school and then running around outside. The reason I bring this up is that I was home all the time, not in school, and I found it a very, very creative time for me because I let my imagination lead me. I learned a lot of problem solving, persistence, and joy in the act of creating. I made things constantly. I learned how to sew when I was 8, and I made my own clothes. Um, they may not have been the best, but I liked them. And I drew and I painted and I constructed things, and I found a lot of happiness and solace in the act of doing. And I find that the creative spirit and creativity in the art of making have been really important resources to me throughout my life. I just wanted to show you an example of something I made when I was 8. So it gives you an idea. It's this house, it's our house, and it's over 50 years old. And inside, this is from an 8-year-old perspective, our kitchen and dining room. This is the living room. We lost the furniture along the way. This fancy room was mine. David and Chad had a room together. Jane had her own room. We always had rooms together. And you'll notice there's not a window in this room here with the bunk beds. That was Ted and Kirk's room, my oldest brothers, and I don't think I liked him very much at that point. And then here's my parents' upper suite with their bedroom and their studio. uh, anyway, one of the things that my parents um, really taught us and instilled in us is one important lesson. At least I feel it's an important lesson. Is that if you have the will and a desire that you can do almost anything, and if you don't like it or you don't have an affinity for that, you can change it. and and that means that if you don't like your career, you change it. If you don't like where you're living, you change it. And I've used that lesson throughout my life, and it's allowed me to do the things I love. I always wanted to give back and help other people because of my illness and my surgeries. So I ended up in a very creative field of occupational therapy. As a result, I did my art as a hobby. I took classes on and off, went for workshops with my parents a lot of time. I designed clothing. I wrote a book about clothing for the disabled. I painted in watercolors, oils, and pastels. And then I found a teacher in Maryland uh, I wanted to study with, and his name is David Zuccarini. And essentially, I rented an easel um, first for one evening, and then as the weeks went on, up to about 10 to 15 hours. And I studied with him, I think probably about 12 or 13 years. I told him what I wanted to accomplish, and he provided the structure for me to learn drawing, composition, and value. And at first, it was all in charcoal. And after about a year and a half, I wanted to start using color in my paintings. And this is my first pastel painting. As an, um, and that I painted, and I gave it to my parents. But anyway, I really like it. Um, and one of the things is I decided to go from pastel painting, and then I learned oil painting, and so I was painting big representational paintings that took 30, 40 or more hours to paint. And I really love the painting process and the problem solving there. And I love my paintings too. And I wanted to find good homes for them. And I began selling them at shows in the family art show. I was always so honored and pleased that somebody loved one of my paintings and took them home with them like a treasure. And that, at this point, still brings me one of the greatest pleasures about selling my paintings. And the thing is I can relate to that because when I buy uh, a piece of art, a painting, um, I have to love it. And I want to hang it in my house, and it has to speak to me and bring me great pleasure. And I realize when I don't get a painting that I really wanted and it's gone, I am really sad. That makes me realize I should have gotten it. But anyway, back to anyway, I moved to North Carolina in 2005 to be close to my family, to Jane. My mother lived down the street, and my brother David, so we could all make art together. Before my mother died, Jane mom and I would go out painting off the beaten track. And I often found the places because I was doing home health. And Jane and I have continued um, going and painting at places that we discovered together. One of my goals when I moved here was really to loosen up and to paint faster and more spontaneously. And so painting in plein air, which is outside, has really helped me. I've taken a lot of workshops over a period of time with pastel, watercolor, and oil painters. And through all the years, they keep stressing the basics of value, composition, and color. Right now, I'm taking an online workshop. It's an ongoing workshop, and it rotates between landscape, still life, and the figure. And I've really seen a difference in painting in terms of my execution, the boldness of color that I have, and spontaneity. All of the work in my show are examples of my love of creating, from the aprons I design and sew to the pastels I painted, I matted, and framed. And I hope that you will like them as well. Thanks for listening. Bye.